Hello, welcome to part 2 of Coding for Kids in Scratch. Today we'll be going over chapter 7, which is all about making code blocks of our own. So without further ado, let's get started. Now we're going to be going over the last category of blocks in Scratch, my blocks. There's still a little more to cover, but we're in the home stretch. Very soon we'll be putting everything together into projects of our own. At first glance, this category can seem intimidating. Even the idea is scary. Making blocks of our own, how are we supposed to do that? However, it's actually really simple. My blocks allows you to store a few blocks of code into one block so that you can keep your program looking nice and clean. It can also help you better understand what is happening in the program and identify where problems might occur. So let's see how we can use this category in some programs of our own. So to start, go to the home page, then create a new program by clicking create, and once it loads up, rename the program my blocks so that you can always remember what it's about. Then go to the last category on the left hand side, which is called my blocks, and you'll see that this category is very simple. And in fact, there's only one button. So to get started, let's just click that button, and it should bring up a box that looks something like this. For now, we don't have to worry about these three options at the bottom, and we'll go over them later. For now, let's just type in a name for this block. And it's always a good idea to name the block by what function the code is for. For this first example, let's name it move random. Then click OK to create the block. And you should see some new things appear. This first part that appears in the code area is the definition. It says define move random. And this is where you're going to put all the code underneath to complete some function. Then in the code storage, you'll see that in the my blocks category, there's now a new block called move random. And this block is what you're going to put under the when green flag clicked to execute the code that you write in the definition. So let's define and use our new block. So since we want the sprite to move randomly, the code we put in the definition will be pretty simple. Go to the control category, and then get a forever loop and drag it underneath the definition block. Then drag a wait 1 second block and drag it inside of the forever loop. Then go to the motion category and drag a go to random position block below the wait 1 second block, so that your code looks something like this with the definition, then forever, wait 1 second, then go to random position. So if we run the program right now, press play, you'll see that nothing happens. And that's because you'll realize that there's nothing actually connected to any when green flag clicked block. So how would anything happen, right? There's nothing to run under a when green flag clicked. So to fix this, let's go to the events category, drag a when green flag clicked block, and then we're going to go back to the my blocks category, and we're going to get the move random block from here, and we're going to drag it underneath the when green flag clicked block. So your code should look something like this, with the definition of the move random with forever, wait 1 second, and then go to random position. And then you'll have a second set where it's the when green flag clicked, and then the move random block underneath of that. Now run the program, and you'll see that the code should run as expected, where the cat just starts to move to random positions as long as the code is running. And while this may seem like an unnecessary extra step, it can actually be pretty helpful when you create a more complicated program. Using a single block instead of all of these blocks can help clean up the main part of the program and make it so you better understand what's actually happening instead of being confused by seeing so many code blocks. It can also help you narrow down where problems are occurring so you can look at one section of code instead of the entire program. Also, if you use the same code over and over again, it can help prevent you from rewriting the same code blocks in the same order over and over and over again. So it saves you time and it saves you effort when it comes to making programs and understanding what the programs do. So we're going to explore the importance of using my blocks in later chapters, but for now, let's explore the other options that we had just skipped over when we made our first block. So let's click the make a block button again so that we can see the different options. So the rightmost option, add a label, is just where you add in the name of the block. It doesn't really do anything different, and it just allows you to label the block as it says. Then the leftmost option, add an input, lets you get a text or number from the main part of the code and then pass it to the code in the definition. This is a little confusing as well. The center option is add a boolean, which lets you pass an if-then statement from the main part of the code and use it in the definition. These two, the add an input and add a boolean, are both pretty confusing. So we're going to go over them quickly with an example. So let's choose add an input, and just like the name for the block, you want to make sure that the input reflects its purpose. So to illustrate how to use this input, we're going to make a program that will ask a question and then respond to whatever the answer is. So let's name the input answer, and then let's name the block itself respond. So that way we know that the code there is responding to some answer. Then let's click OK to create the block, and it'll make a new definition. So I'm just going to quickly move this definition off to the side, and for now, let's remove this move random block that we dragged under the when green flag clicked and just delete it for now. We don't really need it for what we're doing. So what we're going to do now is that before we define the respond block, we're going to make a program that will ask a question and then get an answer. So go to the sensing category, and then you're going to find the block that says ask what's your name and wait. Then we're going to click and drag that underneath the when green flag clicked block. And so let's type in a new question instead of what's your name, and let's have it say what's your favorite number. Alright, so then we're going to go to the my blocks category, and we're going to drag a respond with a blank underneath the ask what's your favorite number and wait block. Right? Then we're going to go back to the sensing category, and you see this thing where it says answer, the round block underneath where you found the ask what's your name block. Drag that round block answer, lowercase, to the hole next to the respond block. Now that's completely done. So now basically it'll ask a question, and once it gets the answer to the question, it'll pass that answer to the definition of respond. So now let's define the respond block. Since we want to respond to the user, let's have the sprite say something, then tell the user what their favorite number is. However, let's make it so that the sprite's favorite number is always the user's favorite number plus 5. So go to the looks category and drag a say hello for 2 seconds block underneath the define respond block. Then let's change the message to that's a cool number. And you don't have to change the time because it's a pretty long message. Then drag another say hello block underneath that first one and change the message again to my favorite number is, and then a colon, so that they're expecting a number after that. And then we're going to drag a third say hello block from underneath the first two, and this is where we're going to use the input that we passed through. So go to the operators category and get the first block, the blank plus blank block, and drag it to where it says hello in the third block. And you should see that it should just replace the message there. And now we're going to use the input that we just passed through. So in the first blank hole, type in 5, right? Then in the second one, bring the cursor to where it says answer in the definition, then click and drag, and you should see that a round block that's red with a capital A answer shows up and gets moved with your cursor. Now drag that into the second hole next to the 5 so that it says say 5 plus answer for 2 seconds. Your code should look like this, so that your definition is 3 say blocks with your third say block with the 5 plus answer. And then under the when green flag clicked, you have ask what's your favorite number and wait, and then respond answer. So now on the program. So then it's going to ask the user for a number. So I'm going to say, let's say 48. And then when I click this check mark to send through that answer, it'll say that's a cool number. Then it'll say my favorite number is 53, which is 48 plus 5. So by using this input, you're able to simplify the code that actually exists underneath the when green flag clicked, and without reducing any of the functionality at all. And it may seem useless to add this extra step of passing the answer through the respond block when we could have just dragged this blue answer block from the sensing category here where it says 5 plus red answer. But by doing it this way, it allows us to reuse the same code for another question. For example, we could add another thing right under it and ask what's your second favorite number, and then put respond with the same answer block. And then this time it'll respond with a different number that is always 5 plus whatever the user inputs at that question. So then the other option that we didn't cover, the add a boolean, is very similar to how this add an input worked. So in the definition, you use a placeholder if then statement with some name that you gave it, and then in the main part you can pass in any if then statement that you want, and then it'll use that value that you passed in that question, and then it'll use that within the definition code. So It's alright if you don't understand add an input and add a boolean yet, and that's going to take some time because they're a little confusing and it's a little more complicated. But it's alright because you don't actually have to use them anytime soon. But the more you practice using my blocks and the more you get used to coding, the more that you will understand how to use these different options. For now, all you need to understand is that the my blocks category can be used to simplify code and make it more understandable. So with that, let's move on to the last chapter in this part, where we'll be learning about lists.